yeah, that's not annoying at all. Just a quick sound check, guys. Can you hear me? Alrighty. Let's see here. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Conscious Quilting Live. Alrighty. Whoops, hold on. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. One day I'll get it perfect. It'll be fabulous. So today is, of course, part four in our Mandala Quilt. You may notice that I cheated on you guys a little bit. I did a little work off camera on this piece because it needed more feathers, and last episode was very feather intensive, and I just decided, no, I don't want to make you guys sit through another hour of feathers after last week. So I went in and I echoed my points all the way around, and in my smaller points here I put in tiny little feathers. So I'm going to try and zoom in on that so you can get a sense of that. Woo! Okay. Just a little eep. There we are. So here you can see I got in there and did some feathers. I really feel like it adds something to the piece. I will tell you, tiny feathers are a lot harder to do than my regular size feathers. I found that tiny feathers and large feathers tend to throw me, and this actually brings up a really good instructional point or instructive point. I have to check my dictionary. Which is that any motif that you do, you should do in multiple sizes as a matter of habit. You should absolutely practice the different motifs that you learn in different scales and practice the skill set of scaling up and scaling down the sizes of your motifs. It makes all the difference in the world when you get yourself into a situation, as I did here, where you need to do something small that you usually do medium to large. Tiny feathers I find to be a bit more difficult because I haven't practiced them as much. So just a little pro tip for those of you who are enhancing your free motion education. And it's a good idea to practice in different sizes. So I want to do a quick recap of everything we've done throughout this project. The thing that not all of you may realize is that this was a totally spur of the moment project. I'm going to adjust my camera again. Just so I can talk directly to y'all. You can see me. Hello. Okay. Okay. Sorry, there's a delay. I'm just making sure you can see me. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you realize this was a very spur of the moment project. When I decided that I was going to do a live show, and in my head it was just going to be one. And here we are a month later. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, I want to be quilting and I want to be speaking with my community, right? And I want to make a connection. And that's the whole point of my live show. Not so much that it's a class, but it's a chance for me to connect with you guys, for you guys to comment or ask questions, and I can interact with you and you can get to know me a little better and we can kind of build a bond, That's the whole point of this. It isn't necessarily a class in and of itself, except for the odd little tip or suggestion or whatever that I'm going to hand to you in the course of just conversing with you. So when I did the first live and I was planning it and I'm like, I want to be quilting and I want to speak with my community. And I was just thinking I was just going to graffiti quilt with like no idea of what I was doing, no actual planned project. And somewhere on the afternoon of that first night, that first Tuesday, when I knew I was going to go live that night, the inspiration struck of, no, that's boring. You should really do something. You should do something that's going to turn into a real project. And that was when the inspiration to do the Mandala Quilt hit. And in the course of that, I'm like panicking, of course, because I've just got a couple of hours and I have to throw this thing together, right? And so I grab my fabric and I grab some rulers and I grab my little fabric marker and I just go to town. And so this was very spontaneous and it's been very organic through the whole process, which honestly is part of what I've loved about it. It's just kind of emerged spontaneously as we've been going along, So I took my rulers and I started in my center here. I just took a simple circle ruler that I have, a circle template, drew myself that nice big circle for my center, and built out from there. So then I echoed that line, grabbed another set of rulers and added in my petals, grabbed my circle ruler again to put in my arcs around, and that, oh, and then I have a wedge ruler that I used for my long feather points here. So I had just outlined that basic structure and I got it stitched in pretty much just in time to go live on that first show. And, so I mean, you didn't see the frenzied activity that was going on behind the scenes beforehand. And I want you to know what I went through for you. So, for your entertainment. So I had a good time with it. It was fun. But it was definitely very frenetic and very get it done. And so then in that first show, of course, we did the center feathers and the ribbon candy in the petals here, the paisleys in these arcs here, and the scrolling feathers, which they just emerged spontaneously. I was just inspired to do that and did it and loved it and did a whole video just about the scrolling feathers because that had just come out of nowhere. And it was a wonderful inspiration. So that, I think, was the first show. And then second show, we got into the ribbon candy and the secondary arcs and the pebble work. And that may actually have been as far as we got because the pebble work was a lot. Then the third show, I added the points here. I actually drew those in and then stitched them in on the live. And of course, I did the feather work in my 4 big points, which was very time intensive and feather intensive for one show. And then, as I said, off camera, I did the outlining and added my tiny, tiny feathers, which really, really, really added something to the piece. And I'm loving how that works and how it looks. Tonight, my intention is to fill in hopefully all of the negative space around the mandala. I've of course used just a myriad of bright colors and different colors in the center part. So for the negative space on the outside, my intention is to use a medium dark gray thread, which I'm hopeful that you'll still be able to see what I'm doing. It's not dark, so it should show up just fine. We will find out. And for the record, my camera seems to be working just a bit differently on live than it does when I'm filming and recording where I can go back and edit. So I don't quite get exactly the same results. Anyway, my intention is to graffiti quilt in this external negative space with the medium dark gray thread. And to hopefully fill all of this up while we are chatting this evening. We will see how that goes. I may or may not finish this, but it is my intention that this will be the last live for this project. So, I just want to pop in to the messages and say hello to some folks and answer any questions or address any comments. So, hi Mom, I'm glad you're here. Hi Donald, thank you. Hi Cheryl, awesome. Cheryl Wempole, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and thank you for loving my quilting. Awkward Quilted Georgia, hi, thank you. Awkward Quilter Georgia has her own page on YouTube, for those of you who don't know. and she very kindly shared one of my videos on her page and got a little attention to my channel that way, which I greatly appreciated. That was probably about a month and a half ago now, but I really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you for popping in to say hi. Really appreciate you, and I like your channel too. Thanks. Okay, does anybody have any questions or thoughts before I get cracking? And I need to practice saying that here and not to my computer. Sorry. I'll get it worked out. All right, I'm going to get started here, which means I need to change my camera again a little bit. We're going to drop a little bit. Just a little, just a little, just a little. And I'm going to zoom. Nope. Donald Finch, you're asking about the color of the binding I'm going to use. Well, actually, I'm going to finish this one of two ways. I am either going to try to find an appropriately sized artist canvas that I can attach this to, or I'm actually going to birth it and top stitch it, meaning that I'm kind of going to do the pillowcase thing. I'm going to lay a piece of fabric over, stitch it most of the way around, turn it right side out, and then top stitch it so that it will not have a binding as such. I have not decided which I'm going to do yet, because I'm not sure I'll be able to find an appropriately sized canvas for this. This is 40 by 40. Sorry, I'm moving the microphone. This is 40 by 40, and therefore, that may be an issue, actually finding an appropriately sized canvas. So, all right, I'm going to get rocking and rolling here. And oh, graffiti quilting. This came up this week because not everybody's heard of that. So, graffiti quilting is a style of quilting that is kind of the hallmark of Carly Porter. And she's a quilter out of Utah. She is absolutely brilliant. And I absolutely love her work. She's magnificent. She has been on the circuit for probably about a decade, and if not longer. I don't know the exact timing, but she is a published author. She has a number of books out. She is known for this style of quilting that is really, it's kind of kitchen sink quilting, but in a really stylish, really powerful kind of way. And I discovered it years ago. I love it because it's, I call it sheer chaos, but it isn't actually that chaotic. The way she does it is actually very, very orderly. But you basically, nuts and bolts, you take every motif you know how to do and you do it. and it's very much like graffiti that you would see on a wall somewhere. And it may have some sort of a theme worked into it, or it may not. You know, for this part of it, my theme is the center, and I'm just finishing out the piece. So I'm not putting any specific themes into the graffiti quilting today. However, her work is just phenomenal, and she's been in shows and everything else, and she really knows what she's doing. She's marvelous. Absolutely love her. She does have a YouTube channel, for those of you who care to check her out. But she's been more focused on writing books and doing her thing. So I need to stop a minute, make a slight adjustment to my tension. Okay. And of course, working from this angle, I can't entirely see where I'm going, and that's always entertaining. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see. Trying to get a sense of if you can see the stitching or not. Oh, come on. All right. But I've seen other forms of the same idea in quilting as graffiti quilting, and just called, improvisational quilting or something like that. You can call it whatever you want. I don't obsess over these things. But it's not, I don't think it matters. I think what matters is you do what you love, you do what you feel, you try and tune into that and just relax and let it flow. And let the quilting be what it wants to be. I actually said that in my class on Saturday, and one of the people in the class just bust out laughing at my hippiness. And I was like, okay, go ahead and giggle, but it is what it is. That's how I teach. So I laughed about it, but I was like, okay, you can laugh. That's fine. Hopefully you learned something too, I certainly hope so. But, we get, I think, very tangled up in the naming of things as humans. We feel that it's very important that we use appropriate names for things, and certainly in certain cases it's like vital. But then sometimes, does it really matter that much? I mean, we're quilting, let's just have a good time. Let's just enjoy it. Do what we can with it. Alright, there's a start at least. And I have to do this without knocking anything over. And can you all see well enough, or should I zoom in more? Give me some feedback, please. I'm just going to cruise along here and do my thing. So, I really love any kind of quilting that allows you creative freedom. I think there's certain types or styles of quilting that start to take that creative freedom away from you because you get locked in a box. And so anything that unlocks that box and lets you out to play, I think is a marvelous thing creatively. Case in point, these live shows have been marvelous for me creatively and have really fed and nourished me, and I've been very grateful that you all have decided to come on this little journey with me. Let's see. Can see it okay. Doing my best with the sound, Judy, but I'm where the machine is, so whatever. So I lost my train of thought on that one, sorry. Oh yeah, creative freedom, very, very important. And these live shows have been really good for me creatively, and I've been very grateful to to be able to do them and to have you guys here with me on this. So, thanks. Let's see what we got here. Some cover work. Okay. My directors are directing me. That's as zoomy as it gets, folks. And I don't think moving the camera away from me is actually going to help, or the microphone away from me is going to help, so I'm bringing it back. Anywho, actually, let me try. I'll slow the machine down a little bit. That'll help. Okay. Someone earlier this week had asked me about the creative process for actually making this Mandala quilt. And that was part of why I wanted to do that little recap at the beginning of, you know, the quick steps of what I had done, just so that person would have a sense of how I went about the process. I can kind of see at some point doing either a video or a live where I'm actually going through that marking process. I think for some people that might be interesting. I'm sure for some other people it might not be, but you know, I'm always looking for new creative ideas for things to do on my channel. Again, I'm just kind of getting started over the last couple of months, and that has been a journey in and of itself, learning all the camera stuff and the editing stuff and music and sound and lighting, positioning, wardrobe, hair, makeup, attitude, the whole thing. And just trying to create the best content I can and not make too much of a fool out of myself while I do so. And try to bring some education and some fun and some relaxation to folks who would be interested in having that. So, and it's a fun kind of little hobby for me. The channel's been growing very nicely the last more subscribers, a lot more interested folk watching my videos and commenting. I'm getting a lot of comments now. You know, so I like having the feedback for the most part, as long as it is written with kindness, which it is not always, but, you know, usually it is. If it's constructive criticism and it's written with kindness, I'm fine with it, but some things do not get written with kindness, and those things get taken down, and that's that. So, because it's my channel, so there. Eventually it'll probably get to be so big that I won't even be able to have time to do that, but whatever. Alright, I need to get out of these pebbles. I've kind of trapped myself in this for the moment. Let's see here. Yeah, that's a little too slow. I just can't do it. Okay. Let's come out and change gears here. Add a little McTavishing. I'm a really big fan of the background filler style known as McTavishing, which originated with Karen McTavish, who is a marvelous free motion quilter in Duluth, Minnesota. She's a published author. She was a traveling teacher for years. She's this really awesome human being, and she's got all these really cool tattoos of feathers that she drew, and she's kind of wild and very cool and an amazing quilter. And she came up with McTavishing as a replacement for stippling, because she'd been doing a lot of stippling, is my understanding anyway. And it was really boring her to tears. She wanted something different to do as a background filler. And she just called it wavy cartoon Wonder Woman hair. She did not call it McTavishing. The internet did that to her. And it was a thing. And honestly, I think to this day, it's kind of still a thing that she would have rather not had it be called that. But it is a cool name. It's a beautiful name. And it's a very beautiful stitch. It's a nice way to fill space in a quilt when you need to. And I'm going to turn my quilt a bit. We'll see how that goes. Okay. And it gives a wonderful sense of motion to the quilt. And when I first discovered this stitch, I thought it was just magical. And I did kind of, once I figured it out, I kind of did nothing but this for quite a while on almost every project that I did, which was a lot of stitching, because it can be done as a very, very dense stitch, and that's what I was doing at the time. And I had such a good time doing it, and I would just kind of go into this trance and flow with it. And that was where I started to really kind of discover the meditation, the zen of quilting, if you will. You know, quilting as a meditation came out of McTavishing. So my whole shtick with this being conscious quilting and mindful quilting and meditative quilting, all of this, frankly, I owe to Karen McTavish. So Karen, if you ever see this, thank you, and I adore you, and I think you're wonderful. And I love your quilting. And there's a podcast out there, I'll try to find the name of it, where she got interviewed. And it's this really kind of in-depth, very personal interview that she did some years ago, that she really kind of got into the nitty-gritty of how she got started quilting and how she developed her whole thing with quilting and how she got into it. And I don't want to sit here telling her story, you know, because that's, you know, it's her story. But it was fascinating to hear. So if you ever hear about it, or if you ever track it down, it's worth the time to listen to it, I think. Eventually, I'm going to do a tutorial video specifically about McTavishing. I've been going back and actually re-watching some of her stuff with it, because one of the things with McTavishing is you do develop your own fingerprint and style with it. And so like my McTavishing's not going to look just like hers or yours or anybody else's. You really do, and I think that's true of all forms of quilting, all media, all motifs and whatnot. You're going to have your own fingerprint. You're going to have your own brush strokes with it. Whether it's feathers or teardrops or McTavishing or spirals or any of the rest of it, you're going to have your own brush strokes. And I discovered that you really can identify a quilter's work by the brush strokes if you are familiar enough with their work. And so it's really funny that way, that you can actually track a quilt, you know, track down who quilted it and really look at that, just like you can with a painting. Brush strokes are like fingerprints, and you can't fake them. They are unique to the individual. And I think it's very true with the quilting as well. You know, everybody's going to have their own brushstroke for everything. But then again, every motif will have its basic guidelines that make it that that motif, that background fill, whatever it is that you're doing. You know, there's always going to be some kind of basic guidelines to make it that thing and not something else. Ultimately, in free motion quilting, it's been said that, you know, we do pretty much 5 different motions for all of the different wonderful, beautiful things that we can do in quilting. It's really just 5 different motions. And I don't know if it's really just 5, but it has been said that that's true by some. And but it's really funny how many different things you can create with those 5 different motions. So I think that's pretty cool. We'll continue on along here. Actually, I'm going to stop a minute and look at the chat box. Zoom, I know, perfect, much better. It's rolling now. So yeah, let me continue on here. And yeah, I still do a lot of McTavishing because I really do still love it a lot. It's one of those things that, you know, I can just sit there and look at it and enjoy it. I can sit there and quilt it and enjoy it. I can sit there and draw it and enjoy it. And it always kind of gives me this sense of calm and, I don't know, just this very blissed out kind of space where I can just be with that and tune out everything else. And I like that. So get in here with my arcs and get back in here. I'm doing a lot of sneaking around and backtracking here because I have to. One of the good things about using gray thread, even if it's on a black background, your backtracking and where you have to sneak around to do stuff just disappears. The eye doesn't really pick up on it, it just hides itself. And I really like that a lot. Let's give a spiral in there. One of the things people tend to ask me a lot is, how do I decide where to go? What kind of quilting to do in a space, or where to do it, or where to take a motif in a particular direction? I get that question a lot. And the answer is I let the negative space guide me. So like I'm entering back into my open space here. Yeah. And I have to fill that space, and with McTavishing, I can fill it in all sorts of ways. And I don't want to just do McTavishing, but I'm doing a lot of it right this second. That's the downside. When I get into the zone with McTavishing, I can forget how long or how far I've gone with it when I'm supposed to be doing a bunch of other things. So I am going to switch gears now and switch to something else. But I let the negative space determine how I'm going to move in a space, right? So here, I'm going to come out. primitive feather here. Because I want to open out to some larger, more open quilting in this space. One down here. And let this get a little more folksy as well, just because I want to. And that's the whole point with graffiti quilting, you know, kind of a follow your bliss style of quilting instead of it being all planned out and having to be a certain way. Bring that around. And then I'll be able to fill in the McTavishing here. And I gotta sneak through here and be careful. Try not to destroy my work. It's always tricky. Yeah, I'm supposed to be talking. Sorry. See, this is what happens. I'm sorry. What kind of foot am I using? I am using an open toe free motion quilting foot. I mentioned last week that I had been using a closed toe up until recently. And for some reason that I've not figured out, it started giving me fits on my machine. And I couldn't have that for my videos. That was bugging me. And so I just switched back to an open toe, which is what I generally recommend for someone who is more of an early free motion quilter over a closed toe. Precisely because the closed toe can create some issues. So, you know, if we can avoid those issues in the early stages of free motion so as to avoid frustration and such, that would be a good thing. The area I'm quilting right now, of course, is largely going to get covered up when I finish this piece. Oh no! My foot got caught on the edge of my fabric. I knew that was going to happen. I'm just going to turn this so I can get through this rather difficult area that is bothering me. We're going to get through it and move on with life. And I'm just going to do some simple arcs to blast through this so I can not have to worry about it anymore. Because I'll be able to switch off to something else pretty quickly. Of course, when we get into an area, I want to make sure you can see this. When we get into an area like this, this is a little puffy right now. So I want to be very careful not to create a pleat, because that's no good. And so I'm going to do a largish spiral over here, and then I'll build out with echoes. But that spiral is going to gather up that poofy fabric and contain it so as not to create a pleat or have a problem. And isn't that a fun trick? So all that Poochie fabric that was sticking up there is now laid down and controlled so that I don't have to worry that I'm going to pleat it up against my feather here. And I'm much happier now, so yay. Just get in here and fill this in. And let's bring this out. Anytime you're near the edge of your quilt, that is where things can get very challenging. And you know, you're at the edge, it can catch on your quilting foot, it can catch on all sorts of stuff, so kind of important to be careful with that. I am going to put most of my quilt in my lap so I can get through this corner here. And I'm tacking down my corner very consciously, again, to avoid pleating. A lot of what I'm quilting right now, again, is going to disappear when I finish this piece. This foot really wants to grab the edge of that quilt. All right. Just get in there. It'll be fine. You're going to stitch over it later anyway. Don't make it perfect. Don't worry about it. Okay. Oh, and I just stitched my glove to my quilt. Let's all have a nice chuckle about that. So I want to make sure that you see this. I have literally stitched the finger of my glove to my quilt right here. Tink. That's just genius. Okay. The joy of working live. I can edit nothing. Okay. Let's get that back in there. Okay. Okay. I think I have found my freedom here. And I, of course, actually, considering exactly how much time that has taken, wow, we are not going to finish this tonight. That is not happening. Okay. That's all right. We'll do what we do. I just want to... Okay. I'm going to get in here and put in some more bubbles over here, some more pebbles. And get this filled in, because I missed a spot. All right, I want to see if y'all can see all of that before I move on. See what we can come up with. Okay, so I'm gonna move now over here, and we're gonna add some more magical goodness over here. I'm gonna put in some of those shells, I think. But first, I am going to break this space up a little bit, just because that's gonna make things easier for me later. Anytime you have a large space to quilt in, just blank canvas, sometimes I say anytime, sometimes it's a really great idea to break it up like I'm about to do, so that you're not just lost in this vast void of space, you know? You're creating a little box, and then you'll fill the little box, you know? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So break it up into bites. So I'm going to come over here and put in a couple of wavy lines. And just do that. And that gives me a nice space to work in over here. So that'll be good. So just like in my Nautilus shell video, I'm going to add some Nautilus shells. And at least with the gray thread, it'll actually show up. And I really do love this filler. I think it's a lot of fun to do. A little work intensive, just like pebbles are, but I think it's worth it in most cases. And again, it gives that sense of motion, just like the McTavishing does. So. Doing them in different sizes is nice too. Although they are trickier, smaller, admittedly. Over here, I'm just putting in some ripples just to fill it in, because the space is way too small to try and do anything else in. And I'll come in here, add some more of this filler. This is definitely one that shows a little better if you go a little bit bigger. But I feel like if you went too big, it just wouldn't work either. So it's all about balance, kids. Good thing about working your way through a filler like that is you can backtrack your fanny off and never, it'll never show. Yes, Donald, I was zoning out. Sorry. That happens. I need to be allowed to express. So does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to throw at us? You know, throw me a curveball while I'm making all these curveballs. What's going on? Something's wrong. Something's gone horribly wrong. Hold on. It's not that. It's not that. Okay, I think it sorted itself out. We'll find out. I was having a sudden tension issue, but it rectified itself. Did I run? I ran out of bobbin. That's where the tension issues was coming from, I think. Yep. I will pretty much move around the quilt pretty consistently as much as possible. You know, as you see on here, and I'm going to zoom out to show a little better what I've done so far, I think. I'm going to try. Go this way. You know, I started from one point and I worked out one half of one side, and then I went to the other half of that side. In the interests, zoomies out. There we go. And I realize, again, gray thread, black fabric, so, but I just want you to get a sense of what is happening. There we go. And over here, of course, there we go. Better sense. So I am trying to work one side at a time while I do this. And fill this in such a way. I chose the gray thread because, of course, I want that to mostly fade into the background, but I still wanted it to make a statement, you know, because if I wanted it to disappear entirely, I would simply do black thread, but I would not waste my time trying to do a live show with black thread on black fabric. That's not very cinematic. This is pushing it, and I know that. But for the purposes of this piece, this was the right thread to use, because I want it to be kind of this gray, misty, primordial chaos in the background, and out of that has emerged this mandala of structure and order and pattern. You know? That is what I am shooting for with this piece. You know, something hippie crazy like that. And I think it's working for me, at least. I like it. But it's it's been a very organic project, which has been very, very cool. I love doing it, and I'm probably going to be more than a little bit sad when all of a sudden the project is over. And what do you do about that? The project is done. Well, you move on to another project. I just have no idea what the next one's going to be either. So I'm going to zoom that back in for you guys. But I'm really hoping that that gray in contrast will, oh man, really, really wish wish this thing would give me access to the finer points of my camera. And I don't know what to do about that. I'll figure it out. I tried to use my actual real live camera to do this live, and I guess I don't have the appropriate software yet to do that. I'm sure I can find one somewhere, probably for free online. I'll have to do more research. I'll figure it out. Things will get better, folks. Stick around. Let's see. I left off somewhere in here. I'll pick it up here. Okay. One thing I think a lot of people kind of go back and forth on when they're learning free motion quilting is whether or not to actually use their foot control. Or, you know, because like on some machines you can just unplug the foot control and use a start-stop button, which I actually will do that during my classes. Sorry, I had to remember what pattern I was doing. I'm multitasking here, folks. I've started not using a foot control when I do my classes just because it's one more thing I have to remember to bring from home and then remember to bring back with me. And I just decided, you know, I don't need that drama in my life. So, but a lot of my early students, you know, they're newer to free motion quilting. I will recommend to them in the beginning not to use their foot control, because that's one more thing that they have to think about is, you know, how much pressure to put on the foot control for their speed. And if they have the option of not using it, you know, and that came out pretty good. I like that. That's good texture. I love good texture. Sucker for texture. Ooh, okay. I know what I'm doing. But when you're in the beginning of free motion, if you don't use your foot control, then you have less to worry about. You have less to think about, which is kind of nice. And you know, it just takes one variable out of the equation. Because I see students speed up and slow down and speed up and slow down, speed up and slow down, and it's like they're learning to drive a car. Suddenly they're teenagers again, and their dad is yelling at them, you know, clutch, you know, or whoever, or mom, or whatever, driving instructor person, which could be anyone, and it's that very scary feeling. And I think maybe it's just bringing back some of that early teenage trauma of learning to drive the car, and maybe that's part of why people have anxiety about free motion. I don't know, but I see it a lot. And if you can take away the stress of one of the factors that is overloading you, then why not do it? So you can unplug that foot control and just use a start-stop button if your machine has one, and that's a cool thing. Nifty. Not everybody has that as an option, and I know that too, but I do recommend it for a lot of my students in the beginning. Now, as you go on and you get more confident and more comfortable with your free motion, then being able to raise and lower your speed at will with your foot suddenly becomes a very useful thing. And as is the case right now, because I'm doing straight-ish line work, trying to, and I say straight-ish very mindfully, because, you know, they're not. And remember, as I'm crawling along over here, this is all going to be gone when I finish this piece. So this is where I can just screw up all I want. And so some machines actually have a knee lift that doesn't run the machine. It just raises and lowers the foot controller, just to address the conversation in the chat box. Anywho, so this is coming along, not as fast as I expected it to, so this is definitely not going to be finished on camera tonight. I don't know why I thought I'd be able to do so much more this evening, but I know it's not going to happen. But that's okay. It's not like I'm really on a schedule, but it's already 8:06 and I'm only planning to go until 8:30, so it's okay. All right, that's fun. Do I want to keep going with that or do something different? I want to do something different. What do I want to do? Ooh. Ah, okay. Putting in some leaves in here. Flatten that out a bit. And sometimes my leaves come out with very funny shapes, and that is okay. I shall let them. Let them be what they want to be. Stop trying to control everything. Because that's really one of my things with free motion, is learning to let go a little bit of the control factor in life. Because sometimes you really do just have to give it up to God and, you know, just throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care, and let the quilting be what it wants to be, and let life be what it wants to be, and stop trying to manipulate and control everything, because you can't. And the harder you try to control things, I think, the more likely it becomes that you will be forced into a situation where you don't have any anymore, and you just kind of look at that and go, well, all right. Okay, moving on. Tiny little leaf. Tiny little leaf. And echo, and echo. Echo, 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 echo. Travel. Come down. Yaw. And fill this guy in. Boop. I don't know what that was, but we'll go with it. Okay. Sometimes when you're quilting, your hands will just do things that you're like, what are you doing? And then it works out, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing. Cool. Really not sure if that's hands or brain or spirit guides or what's going on, but sometimes it's kind of like automatic writing. Travel down here, and we'll go on and leaf up here. So this little leaf fill can be a lot of fun. Because you can go in pretty much any direction with it, which I like, and it's really just a bunch of echoing shapes of the leaf, and you can do that as many times as you really need to, and just keep adding them in, you know. Sorry, I'll try to make sure I'm not blocking the camera. My bad. And then if you get an area that gets poochy again, just start laying it down. Let it rock. And I'm going to come over here, and I created a negative space leaf shape here, so I'm just going to fill that in. I didn't even mean to do it, it just happened. So, I'm enjoying these leaves, they're a lot of fun. They're a nice filler. Fill that in. Go big or go home. Check our time. This area, I'm just going to go geometric with it. It's got a triangular shape to it. All right, let's see. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So let's look at all that together as best as we can. Okay. Okay, stay. Thank you. All right. Like many of my projects, this has a mind of its own. Okay. So there towards the right-hand side, and I am going to, at this point, I'm going to take the phone off the stand and cruise around this piece so that you can get a better sense of it without the zoomies. Zoom out. There we go. So there's my leaf fill and my snails. They're not snails, they're Nautilus shells. There's a big leaf, my pebbles, and my McTavishing. I really thought I would get so much further with this tonight. And it's just not gonna happen. So I'm happy. I'm very happy with this piece, obviously. There's so much color and vibrancy to it. And so we can see my teeny feathers and the feathers at the middle. A lot of feathers in this piece, but I mean, that's not a surprise. It's one of my pieces. So, but you start to get that sense of how this is going to come across so differently than the colored threads. And that juxtaposition is going to be really interesting, I think, when the piece is finished. So, I'm quite happy with it. I'm going to keep working on it off camera and I'll get it done. I will post photos when it's all truly finished, or I will do a little final video just to show the piece so that everybody gets to see it. If anybody's got any final questions, start typing now, because we'll probably end a little bit early tonight. But this was a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed working on this project with people interacting with me while I did it. Tonight, of course, was a less chatty night overall, but that's okay. That happens. I probably will not be going live next week. I will probably take next week off and think about, well, if I have finished this project, then I'll be thinking about the next project next week. So, it's been a good time. And if there are no further questions or comments, I'm going to bid you all a very nice evening. So, thank you very much for joining me. All right. Good night, y'all.